to wonder what the point of a paywall is if it's so easy to scale. Even before the New York Times started charging for access this week, readers were coming up with ways to get it for free. Casual web users are restricted to 20 free articles a month. It costs anywhere from $15 to $35 a month for more. But you can get the full version of any article reposted through Twitter and Facebook or found through a Google search. The Times has responded by saying, "We've designed our digital subscription policy with the idea that we want it to have a porous wall. It is not a paywall in the typical sense of the word. We knew from the beginning that there would be people who would try to get around it." Now, joining us is Martin Nisenholtz. He's responsible for managing all the Times digital properties. Martin, welcome to Bloomberg West. So first of all, you say you intended the paywall to be porous, but did you intend it to be this porous?
No, that's correct. We intended it to be porous. I mean, the idea is to keep the very big base of users so that they can be monetized through our advertising programs, as well as to create a new revenue stream based on subscriptions. And we modeled from the outset the idea that some people would try and work their way around the wall. It's a relatively small number of people. Most people want to support the Times. They recognize that, you know, the great journalism that we produce costs money, and they're all in. Most people are not dishonest. They don't want to work their way around it. In any business, there are going to be dishonest players, and there are a few of them in this one as well. But for the most part, our users are very much behind us.
So how many subscribers have you gotten, and can you give us any idea of how much revenue you've brought in from this so far?
Well, it just launched on Monday, so we're not going to start to release numbers quite yet. We can say that we're very pleased with the early results. We're ahead of where we thought we would be. And I might add that the digital subscription idea has also had some peripheral and very good effect on the print side. We're seeing increases on the print subscription side. So all in all, we're very pleased with the start. But it's not even 3 days, so it's a little early to start reporting numbers.
Well, you're welcome to, though, if you want. I mean, we want to make this easy for you. Let me ask you about that, though. When you make these kinds of projections, what is the basis from which you make those projections? How do you imagine? Do you just kind of put something on the wall and think where it's going to come from, or is there a historical base of user information to draw from?
No, we did extensive consumer research to prepare for this launch. So we did 3 separate rounds of research. We talked to a lot of our best users. We also, several years ago, had a program called Time Select, which was an experiment in paid content. And we looked at the results from that experiment, and we triangulated them with some of the usage research that we did, as well as the qualitative research, the back and forth research that we did with our users, and all of that added up to a model that we created, and it's very, very tight at this point. So we have a lot of confidence that we're very much in the ballpark of knowing what's going to happen.
And what's the biggest surprise you got from that user information? Because I would imagine that as that group got bigger, you probably found some things that you didn't expect.
I think the biggest surprise, because there was a kind of cliche out there that no one wanted to pay for content, we actually had people standing up and saying, it's about time. We've been using the Times website for free for all of these years. We don't understand how you're going to, go forward with a free model and create this great journalism that's so costly on a global basis. So we're actually ready to pay. And I think that gave us, hearing that from our users, gave us a lot of confidence that there was a significant base of people behind this, that it wasn't just a small number.
All right, Martin Nisenholtz, hang on. We're going to talk to you a little bit more about this after the break, specifically what it means for your digital efforts. Hold on there. We'll come right back to you. Tablets are changing the way we get our news and is part of the strategy of the New York Times online package. We're joined again by Martin Nisenholtz, who is responsible for the New York Times digital property. So, Martin, how critical has the advent of the iPad been to your business, and do you think that tablets can save newspapers?
I would characterize it as highly promising. Obviously, there are 2 billion plus web browsers out there, so the big base is on the web, accessing through a PC, notebook, PC, whatever. The iPad has, gotten tremendous traction. Tablets are coming on stream, from other manufacturers as well. I would also say that this whole smartphone world has exploded in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, we have apps available for the iPhone, for the RIM devices, the BlackBerry, for Palm devices. So we've got Android devices. So the smartphone market has also been explosive for news providers, including the New York Times. So I think we've entered a multi-platform world where people are going to access the information they have on the go, at home, in the office, and we just have to be prepared to extend our brand across these platforms.
So Arthur Sulzberger Jr. famously said, "We will stop printing the New York Times someday." Do you have an idea of when that day will be?
I can't see that day happening for a very, very long time. We have an extremely loyal base of print subscribers. And as I said, the advent of the digital subscriptions plan has actually increased the velocity of print subscriptions. So people love their print subscriptions, and I think that's going to continue for a very, very long time. As I said, we're in a multi-platform world. We have to be prepared to publish across print, digital, iPads, e-readers, across the whole plethora of devices that are being manufactured today.
Martin, I downloaded your iPad app about 2 weeks ago. It's really great.
Thank you.
But what did that cost to develop? And you're welcome.
Well, I mean, we don't obviously release the development costs for specific products, but we invest a significant amount of money in our products, and that's part of the reason that we're now beginning to charge for access, because this stuff is expensive to produce. Not only is it expensive on the journalism side, but we're in a multi-platform world where we have to engineer to a whole range of new devices.
Well, give me some context, and if you won't tell me how much it costs, how long does it take? What goes into that kind of development? And what kind of staff do you have to have working on that?
Well, we've imported a whole group of new people into the Times Company in the last 5 years to work on things like this. I mean, you have interactive designers, graphic designers, a whole engineering team of software programmers. Now, obviously, it's not a very, very large team working on a single app. It's a relatively small team, in fact, because what we're doing is we're taking the news feeds out of the newsroom and we're basically playing them in devices, across the range. So it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to reproduce apps across that range. The real money is in the content creation, and that's what we're in the business to do. I mean, we want to be able to scale that content creation across a range of platforms and actually not have to spend money engineering more and more of these apps as they come on stream. So we look very, very carefully at which apps are getting, which devices are getting the most traction in the marketplace, and we tend to go with the devices that the consumer, is getting behind. So the consumer has the ultimate vote here, and basically they're going to tell us what to engineer.
Martin, the New York Times is the most read newspaper on Twitter. In terms of Twitter, Facebook, social media, how do you turn what happens there into dollars?
Well, that's traffic. I mean, the reason that we have this so-called porous wall is so that people from Facebook and Twitter and blogs, email, across the internet, which is a big swirling conversation, as we all know, can get access to our journalism and talk about it online and share it online. And so that's the purpose of Twitter. I mean, people tweet a New York Times story once every 4 seconds. So it's become a very, very large feeder of traffic, which we then monetize through advertising.
All right, Martin Nisenholtz of the New York Times Digital Operations, thank you so much. Very interesting to hear how this paywall is working so far.